If your business is doing well at home, we've already established like the probability of you doing well in another market is quite large. But the first things you want to look at is logistics and inventory. For example, do you have enough inventory to be able to send to multiple fulfillment centers? We all know we don't want to be in a position where you run out of stock just because you're trying to diversify too much. So want to make sure that you're looking at your inventory, looking at your manufacturing time, and just ensuring that in terms of that inventory and cash flow, you are ready to go. How do you know if you're ready to expand? And I know that's like one of the questions that we all have gotten a lot. We've gotten it at conferences. We've got it when we talk to sellers on a daily basis. And we get it. It can be daunting. It can feel complicated and convoluted and like, oh my God, never mind. But the reality is like, it's if you take the appropriate steps, and we'll kind of walk you, what are the things that you want to make sure that you're taking into consideration before going. It's not really that complicated. And we help you with a lot of the steps of that way. So if your business is doing well at home, we've already established like the probability of you doing well in another market is quite large. But the first things you want to look at is logistics and inventory. For example, do you have enough inventory to be able to send to multiple fulfillment centers? We all know we don't want to be in a position where you run out of stock just because you're trying to diversify too much. So want to make sure that you're looking at your inventory, looking at your manufacturing time, and just ensuring that in terms of that inventory and cash flow, you are ready to go. It sounds obvious, I know. However, sometimes people get really excited. They open their VAT and they launch, and then all of a sudden they forgot to account that now you're sending to completely different areas. So that inventory that you initially were counting on, you're splitting that in half or a third or however you have to split. So we just like to put it in steps by steps, even though some of them might sound obvious.
Hey, if you're enjoying this content, you're going to love the masterclasses that we host on a regular basis. We've got over 1,000 members in our private community, and over 400 of them are already doing over $1 million. We regularly host masterclasses with hundreds of students, and you can find out more below. Join us.
A second one is speaking their language. And what we mean by speaking their language, us all three or all four of us are all speaking English on this call, right? However, Louis and I on a daily basis don't understand half of what each other are saying. Localization is just a reality. It's quite funny some days, and some days we're like, I just don't know what you're saying, because each area, like him being from London or close to London, myself especially being from Puerto Rico, so my English is very Latinized as well. So we have very different words and different meanings for things. And why that's important is you want to make sure that if you were to go to Ireland, for example, versus the UK versus Canada, you want to make sure that you're addressing those English barriers in each one of those specifically to that local, to that area. So you want to make sure that you're localizing your listing to that country. And that doesn't necessarily mean language only, it also means culture. And I've seen this time and time and again, and this is something that actually for me is very, very, I take it to heart because I am from a multicultural family. So I'm Puerto Rican with a Spanish mother, a Cuban stepfather, Syrian stepmother. I have the United Nations as a family. So I know how important culture can really come into when you're making a purchase or when you're selling something. But as a consumer, this is really important to me. And what that means also is how you're going to put your listing together. So for example, somebody in Spain likes a little bit more of that like family type images or like lifestyle images and how this impacts my life. And it's just the listing wants to be a little bit more catered to that. Whereas, and I think Mark can elaborate a little bit more on this, but like German sellers in different markets as well, like more facts. They like it to just be like, tell me exactly how much it measures. Tell me exactly how much it weighs. I need to know every single fact about this. And then there's other markets that doesn't really matter to them. It's just the images that's going to sell it. So that's what we mean by localization and speaking their language. It's ensuring that you're localizing the listing to that current culture, to that current climate, and ensuring that all of that aspect is completely aligned with what you're doing in that country. As well as labeling, that's actually something I wanted to kind of like mention there. We know that different countries as well not only require certain labeling, but sometimes it just makes more sense if it's not a required, again, for the localization and culture, to ensure that you're changing your labels where needed, whether it's because you're a supplement brand or consumable. And then lastly, for compliance. So you want to make sure that you're compliant. You don't want your store to get closed. So this is something very, very important to a lot of sellers, especially when they're going abroad. So that's something that Avast can truly help you with. Not only will we help you open your VAT number, which is the first step that you need to be able to even open an e-commerce store abroad, but the second thing is looking at your compliance. So we can help with EORI numbers and EPR numbers, which are just all the different compliance aspects to be able to going into certain countries. EPR, for example, is kind of like an eco tax, if you will. They don't like to call it a tax, but it's just an additional contribution that you have to make if your packaging has plastic or electronics or batteries, and each country has their specifics. So you don't have to worry about all that. We will actually take care of that if you register with us for this. So those are a few of the things that can be daunting and scary, but we kind of walk you through those steps to ensure that before you're expanding, have you looked at these 3 things?